So my talk this morning is continuing on with the topic of hallucinations, but I'm going to actually more talk about delusions because that's an important concept or word in Buddhism. And maybe we could think of hallucinations as a subcategory of delusion, because delusion really does cover more ground. And, one way of thinking about it is delusion is the myriad ways that we are ignorant. And it is considered one of what's called the three poisons. Um, it blocks insight and wisdom, which is a lot of what we're practicing for. And FYI, the other two poisons are, and again, they could be translated in different ways, but I'll just, for the moment, translate them as hatred and greed. So I'm going to read from our book, Reflective Meditation, Cultivating Kindness and Curiosity in the Buddha's Company. And I'm going to read about some of what we wrote about the poisons. The three poisons, greed, hatred, and delusion, can take people into dangerous territory. The poisons feel awful. Often they are diluted like a drop of poison in a full cup of water, but over time, even if more subtle, they can still cause harm. In Buddhism, delusion is understood as ignorance or confusion, like having the wool pulled over our eyes, lacking awareness in la-la land, or alternately, a veneer of fear pervading most life situations without discernment, believing we're going to be screwed over no matter what. Now, not the psychological diagnosis of paranoid delusions, but it could have a tinge of this. And the poisons leak out into the atmosphere. We may cover them up with fancy clothes, but still they fester inside us. Greed, hatred, and delusion appear with different facades and are often projected onto others. So it seems like delusion is in full gear in our political discourse in our country. Sometimes it just seems like each side is simply saying the other is diluted, and that the other is putting out false information. For example, and I can't help but think about my home Portland and our governor Tina Kotek, and she's saying, perhaps not in this many words or quite so directly, that our president is deluded, that there is an insurrection in Portland, that he's looking at images from 2020, and that's not what's going on now. And Trump retaliates, saying that Governor Kotek must be living in a dreamland and that Portland is a never-ending disaster. Now, since I live here, I have my own view of this, quite literally. View is a big word in Buddhism, on the Eightfold Path, but I have my own view. I see what I see as I drive around, and I see actually a city clothed in the beautiful colors of autumn, and I see and I partake in peaceful demonstrations. They're all over the place. And I also see videos of the ice facility that appears peaceful. I drive down there and see with my own eyes, but it's sort of not a part of town I tend to drive to. I don't have other reasons and haven't done that. So the English word for delusion comes from, of course, a Latin root, which is, and let me see, I'm going to pronounce this poorly, deludere, to mock or to deceive. That's interesting because that's exactly what I see in full display in the political discourse. And that's the opposite of the Buddhist precept regarding speech. And now I quote from our own translations of that precept, which is up on the Sati Sangha and the Pine Street Sangha websites. Quote, with our speech, we endeavor to be kind and honest. Our desire is to create a safe space where people can share freely to their comfort level and expect what they share to be held with care and confidentiality. Our intention is to create an atmosphere free from retaliation, free from retaliation. So goes against a lot of what's going on, huh? Um, now, I'm quoting from Sharon Salzberg. She says that in Pali, the word for delusion is moha. That's just well known. But she translates that as to be stupefied. I thought that was an interesting translation. And then, of course, I have to go to the dictionary. What is the dictionary definition of stupefied? And it is to shock or surprise someone very much. Second definition, to cause someone to become confused and unable to think clearly. I wonder if this is an intentional part of the political strategy. Now, Sharon Salzberg makes another interesting point. Our limiting constraint of being lost in delusion is that we end up relying on someone else's vision of what is true rather than our own direct perception. And I'm going to put in parenthetically, of course, there's a lot about what's going on that we can't have our own direct perception. We're not there. Back to what she says, we lose confidence in our own perception of the truth. We feel confused. And if things keep going, we might start getting awfully used to others laying claim to the truth. I thought that was interesting. But of course, our own perception of the truth and everyone else's is undoubtedly flawed and undoubtedly laced with some delusions. That's some of what Buddhism teaches us. Though our task is to get closer to something more authentic, to something more truthful, and to see through the inevitable delusions. Maybe that's one definition of the path that we're on together, is the path of slowly, reliably, over time, with some effort, seeing through the delusions we hold, reducing the poison. Again, towards less delusion or more error correcting. We never advocate for perfection because it's impossible and it's a setup. So back to sort of the political scene. Um, Although history is laced with delusions, of course, um, one of my greatest hopes is that history reveals something less deluded about our times. And with that, we will sit with our experience. We'll see what we'll see some delusions. We'll see things that are clearer, less confused, and everything in between. So I think I recognize everybody who's here with us this morning.